Love isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with grand gestures, love letters, or public declarations. Sometimes love hides in the silence, in the small moments that whisper instead of shout. You may be wondering if someone in your life feels more than they let on, if behind their quiet support, stolen glances, and nervous laughter, there's a love they haven't yet spoken out loud. The truth is, love isn't just about the words we say, it's about the way we show up. We often think of love as something loud, something that demands to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. We picture romantic confessions under the stars, heartfelt speeches in the rain, and grand gestures that leave no room for doubt. But love, in its purest form, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's found in the silence. There's a certain kind of vulnerability in loving someone from a distance, in caring so deeply, yet holding back, unsure of how that love will be received. It's in the stolen glances, the lingering moments, the hesitation before speaking words that could change everything. Silence, in this case, isn't a lack of feeling, it's the fear of being seen completely, of exposing a heart that isn't sure it will be caught when it falls. For many, silence is a shield. It's a way to protect emotions that feel too big, too raw, too real. Maybe he's been hurt before. Maybe he's unsure if you feel the same way. Maybe he fears that saying the words out loud will shift the balance of your relationship in a way he's not ready to risk. Vulnerability is terrifying because it requires stepping into the unknown, surrendering control, and risking rejection. And for some, staying silent feels safer than losing something they're not sure they can live without. But here's the thing about silence. It's not as empty as it seems. If you pay attention, you'll find love hiding in the quiet moments, in the way he listens when you speak, in the way his body turns toward you without him realizing it, in the way he remembers the little things no one else does. Silence doesn't mean indifference. More often than not, it means he's feeling something so deeply that he's still trying to find the courage to put it into words. True vulnerability isn't just about speaking your truth. It's about allowing yourself to be seen, even when words fail you. And sometimes the most honest expressions of love exist in the spaces between what is said and what is left unsaid. We live in a world that puts so much emphasis on words. We wait for the I love you, the grand confession, the moment someone spells out exactly how they feel. But love, real love, doesn't always come in neatly packaged sentences. Sometimes it's spoken in a language that doesn't need words at all, through actions, through effort, through the way someone consistently shows up for you. Words are easy. Promises can be made in an instant. Emotions can be expressed without sincerity, and declarations of love can be spoken without the depth to back them up. But actions require intention. They demand effort, consistency, and most importantly, truth. When someone is quietly in love with you, their actions will often reveal it long before their words do. They'll be there not just when it's convenient, not just when they have something to gain, but when it truly matters. They'll pay attention in ways others don't, remembering the little things that bring you joy, the things that upset you, the small details about your life that no one else seems to notice. Maybe he always finds a way to be near you, even when he doesn't have to be. Maybe he goes out of his way to make your life a little easier, picking up your favorite snack without you asking, fixing something before you even realize it's broken, texting you to make sure you got home safe. These are not coincidences. These are choices. Deliberate, unspoken expressions of love. And let's talk about presence, not just physical presence, but emotional presence. He listens when you speak. not just nodding along, but truly hearing you, remembering the details and bringing them up later in ways that remind you, I see you. You matter to me. Sometimes his love might show up in the way he protects you, standing up for you when you're not in the room, defending you when others try to put you down, looking out for you without making a big show of it. Or maybe it's in his patience, in the way he never rushes you, never pressures you, never makes you feel like you owe him something in return for his kindness. Love doesn't always need to be shouted from the rooftops. More often than not, it's found in the quiet, steady actions that prove a person's heart without a single word. Because at the end of the day, what someone does will always matter more than what they say. Love is not just about attraction, passion, or even compatibility. At its core, real love is about safety, not just physical safety, but emotional safety. It's about knowing that you can be yourself without fear of judgment, that your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, and even your insecurities are held with care. When someone is quietly in love with you, one of the biggest signs isn't in what they say, it's in how safe they make you feel. What does emotional safety feel like? Imagine being in a space where you don't have to filter yourself. You don't have to shrink your personality, carefully choose your words, or walk on eggshells to keep the peace. You just exist fully, openly, and authentically. That's what emotional safety feels like. If he is in love with you, but hasn't said it out loud, you'll notice that he creates this kind of space for you. You'll feel heard when you speak, respected in your opinions, and valued not just for what you do, but for who you are. How he creates emotional safety without listening, without judgment. Have you ever talked to someone and felt like they were just waiting for their turn to speak? That's not emotional safety. Someone who truly cares listens not just to respond, but to understand. He doesn't dismiss your thoughts even if he doesn't agree. He doesn't make you feel small for expressing your feelings. He remembers the little things you share because your words matter to him. He respects your boundaries. A person who values you will never make you feel guilty for saying no. He doesn't push you into things you're uncomfortable with. Whether it's needing space, setting personal boundaries, or taking your time to open up, he honors your pace. He doesn't use your vulnerability against you. True emotional safety means that you can share your fears, past wounds, and insecurities without fear that they'll be used against you later. Someone who loves you, even if they haven't said it yet, will hold your struggles with care. They won't mock your fears, dismiss your pain, or weaponize your words during an argument. He will support you without trying to fix you. Some people hear your struggles and immediately try to solve them, but sometimes you don't need solutions. You just need someone to sit with you in the moment. If he truly cares, he won't rush to fix everything. He'll let you process, be patient with your emotions, and stand beside you instead of trying to control your path. He's there in moments that matter. Love is not just about showing up for the good times. It's about staying present when things get messy, complicated, or difficult. If he's quietly in love with you, he won't disappear when life gets hard. He'll offer quiet support, even if it's just sitting with you in silence when words don't feel right. You feel lighter around him. Emotional safety isn't just about avoiding harm. It's about feeling uplifted, free, and comfortable in someone's presence. If you find yourself naturally opening up, laughing more, or feeling a deep sense of calm when he's around, it's a sign that he's creating a space where you feel safe to be yourself. Why emotional safety matters in love. Without emotional safety, love can feel unstable, insecure, or even conditional. Words of love can be spoken 1,000 times, but if they're not backed by trust, patience, and understanding, they don't mean much. But when someone creates a space where you feel seen, heard, and valued, where your emotions are met with kindness instead of dismissal, that's when you know their feelings for you run deep. So if you're wondering whether he loves you, look at how he makes you feel. Does he make you feel safe, respected, understood? If the answer is yes, his heart is already speaking, even if his words haven't caught up yet. Love isn't just about grand gestures or romantic words. It's often found in the small, almost invisible moments that most people overlook. When someone is quietly in love with you but hasn't said it out loud, one of the biggest signs is in the way they pay attention. Not just casual, surface level attention, but the deep, thoughtful kind that makes you feel truly seen. In a world full of distractions, where people are glued to their phones, preoccupied with their own lives, and often too busy to notice the little things, attention is love. Because to truly notice someone, to see them beyond what they show the world, is a sign of deep care. Love is in the details. When someone is paying close attention to you, it's not just about remembering your favorite color or your go-to coffee order, though those things matter too. It's about noticing the things that even you don't realize you're revealing. The way your face lights up when you talk about something you love. The slight change in your voice when you're upset but trying to hide it. The way you fidget with your sleeves when you're nervous, the songs you hum under your breath when you're in a good mood. These are the kinds of things that people overlook, except for the ones who truly care. How he shows his feelings through attention, he remembers what you say, the smallest things. Most people forget things that don't directly impact them. But if he's in love with you, he remembers. Because you matter to him, that random childhood memory you shared months ago, he brings it up in conversation. You mention an upcoming event you're nervous about, he checks in on you that day. You casually said you love sunflowers, don't be surprised if he somehow finds a way to bring them into your life. It's not about trying to impress you, it's because he truly listens to Dot. He notices when something's off. You might think you're doing a great job of hiding your bad mood, but he knows. He can tell when your smile doesn't quite reach your eyes or when your usual energy feels a little dimmed. He asks if you're okay, not because he's nosy, but because he cares about your well-being. And if you brush it off, he doesn't push. But he stays, offering silent support, letting you know he's there if you need him. 3, he watches over you without making it obvious. Love isn't just about being present, it's about being present in a way that makes you feel safe and valued. If you're in a crowded place, he subtly makes sure you're comfortable. If you're walking together, he instinctively adjusts his pace to match yours. If you're feeling cold, he's already offering his jacket before you even think to ask. These are small, quiet acts of love, but they speak volumes. 4. He adjusts to your needs and preferences. People who aren't paying attention will do things their way without much thought about what you want. But when someone is in love with you, even if they're hiding it, they adjust. If he notices you get overwhelmed in large crowds, he chooses quieter places to spend time with you. If he knows you don't like talking before coffee in the morning, he respects that. If he realizes certain jokes make you uncomfortable, he stops making them, even if he never says why. Because when someone loves you, even silently, they make space for your comfort and happiness. 5, he finds ways to make your life easier. Love isn't always about grand romantic gestures. It's often found in the small, everyday things. He offers to help before you even ask. He picks up on the tasks you dislike and does them for you. He pays attention to your schedule and remembers the things that matter to you. He's not doing these things for credit. He does them because your happiness matters to him. Attention is rare, and that's why it's powerful. In a world where people are constantly distracted, choosing to pay attention is one of the most powerful expressions of love. It says, I see you. I notice the things that make you, you. I care about the details of your life, not just because I have to, but because I want to. So if you're wondering whether he's quietly in love with you, pay attention to how he pays attention to you. Because love doesn't always need words. Sometimes it's in the details. Love isn't just about grand gestures or romantic words. It's often found in the small, almost invisible moments that most people overlook. When someone is quietly in love with you but hasn't said it out loud, one of the biggest signs is in the way they pay attention. Not just casual, surface level attention, but the deep, thoughtful kind that makes you feel truly seen. In a world full of distractions, where people are glued to their phones, preoccupied with their own lives, and often too busy to notice the little things, attention is love, because to truly notice someone, to see them beyond what they show the world, is a sign of deep care. Love is in the details. When someone is paying close attention to you, it's not just about remembering your favorite color or your go-to coffee order. Those things matter too. It's about noticing the things that even you don't realize you're revealing. The way your face lights up when you talk about something you love, the slight change in your voice when you're upset but trying to hide it, the way you fidget with your sleeves when you're nervous, the songs you hum under your breath when you're in a good mood. These are the kinds of things that people overlook, except for the ones who truly care. How he shows his feelings through attention. One, B remembers what you say, even the smallest things. Most people forget things that don't directly impact them. But if he's in love with you, he remembers because you matter to him. That random childhood memory you shared months ago, he brings it up in conversation. You mention an upcoming event you're nervous about, he checks in on you that day. You casually said you love sunflowers, don't be surprised if he somehow finds a way to bring them into your life. It's not about trying to impress you, it's because he truly listens. Two, he notices when something's off. You might think you're doing a great job of hiding your bad mood, but he knows. He can tell when your smile doesn't quite reach your eyes, or when your usual energy feels a little dimmed. He asks if you're okay, not because he's nosy, but because he cares about your well-being. And if you brush it off, he doesn't push, but he stays silent support, letting you know he's there if you need him. 3. He watches over you without making it obvious. Love isn't just about being present. It's about being present in a way that makes you feel safe and valued. If you're in a crowded place, he subtly makes sure you're comfortable. If you're walking together, he instinctively adjusts his pace to match yours. If you're feeling cold, he's already offering his jacket before you even think to ask. These are small, quiet acts of love, but they speak volumes. 4, he adjusts to your needs and preferences. People who aren't paying attention will do things their way without much thought about what you want. But when someone is in love with you, even if they're hiding it, they adjust. If he notices you get overwhelmed in large crowds, he chooses quieter places to spend time with you. If he knows you don't like talking before coffee in the morning, he respects that. If he realizes certain jokes make you uncomfortable, he stops making them, even if he never says why. Because when someone loves you, even silently, they make space for your comfort and happiness. 5, he finds ways to make your life easier. Love isn't always about grand romantic gestures. It's often found in the small, everyday things. He offers to help before you even ask. He picks up on the tasks you dislike and does them for you. He pays attention to your schedule and remembers the things that matter to you. He's not doing these things for credit. He does them because your happiness matters to him. Attention is rare, and that's why it's powerful. In a world where people are constantly distracted, choosing to pay attention is one of the most powerful expressions of love. It says, I see you. I notice the things that make you, you. I care about the details of your life, not just because I have to, but because I want to. So if you're wondering whether he's quietly in love with you, pay attention to how he pays attention to you. Because love doesn't always need words. Sometimes it's in the details. You know, one of the hardest things to come to terms with is that not everyone clapping for you is truly happy for you. And that realization can sting because we crave connection, belonging. We hope that our light doesn't cast a shadow over someone else, but sometimes it does. And not because we're trying to outshine anyone, but because we dared to show up fully, vulnerably, and honestly. Let's talk about jealousy. Not in the gossipy, petty, finger-pointing kind of way, but in the real, uncomfortable, human way. Jealousy is a mirror. It reflects more about the person feeling it than the one it's aimed at. And yet, when you're the one receiving those sideways glances, the backhanded compliments, or the subtle cold shoulders, it hurts. It's confusing. Sometimes it even makes you want to shrink. But let's be clear, someone else's jealousy is not your fault. It is not your responsibility to dim your light to protect other people's comfort. Still, it's important to recognize when you're in the presence of it, because how you respond will either drain your energy or protect your peace. One of the most confusing and emotionally disorienting experiences in any relationship, whether it's a friend, a colleague, or even a family member, is when someone gives you a compliment that somehow doesn't feel like a compliment at all. It sounds nice on the surface, but underneath it carries a sting. It's subtle, often hard to call out, and leaves you second-guessing yourself. You know the kind of comments I mean. Must be nice to have everything work out for you, or wow, I could never be bold enough to wear something like that. It might even sound like, you're so confident. I wish I didn't care what people thought like you don't. These statements are wrapped in pleasantries, but they carry an undercurrent of resentment, comparison, or veiled criticism. These are backhanded compliments, and they're often one of the clearest signs that jealousy is in the room. Here's why they're so powerful. They offer the speaker a way to release their discomfort without fully owning it. Instead of saying, I feel insecure when I see you doing well, or I wish I had what you have, they twist that feeling into something that sounds like praise, but actually undermines you. It's emotional sleight of hand. You feel the sting, but can't always pinpoint the source. What makes this especially hard is that as humans, we're wired for connection. So when someone delivers these kinds of statements, we often respond by trying to soothe, explain ourselves, or make ourselves smaller just to preserve the relationship. We tell ourselves, maybe I am being too much, or maybe I did come off as arrogant. But more often than not, you're simply being yourself. And their comment isn't about you, it's about what your presence is bringing up in them. Now, this doesn't mean we go around labeling everyone jealous or cutting people off without reflection. Sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it. It's a defense mechanism. It's pain masked as sarcasm. It's envy dressed up as humor. But once we see it clearly, we can decide what to do with it. The key is not to internalize it. Don't make their discomfort your burden to carry, and don't let backhanded words reshape how you see your worth. Because the truth is, people rarely throw shade at those standing still. They do it when you're moving, when you're growing, when you're shining. So when those backhanded compliments come your way, recognize them for what they are, a reflection of someone else's inner tension, not a reason to question your own light. Let's talk about something that's hard to admit out loud, how quickly connection can become competition when jealousy enters the room. Relationships at their healthiest are built on empathy, mutual respect, and a deep belief that there's enough space for everyone to thrive. But when jealousy takes root, it quietly rewires those dynamics. Suddenly, instead of being seen as a friend, a peer, or a collaborator, you're seen as a threat, and often it happens so subtly that no one names it, but you feel it. What used to be shared joy turns into a scoreboard. You get a promotion, instead of celebrating with you, they compare. You finally take the trip you've dreamed of, and instead of asking about it, they mention how they've already been there. You speak up with confidence in a meeting and they respond by questioning your experience in front of others. These aren't accidents. They're defense responses. Because somewhere inside, that person isn't thinking, wow, look at what's possible. They're thinking, why not me? Jealousy turns us into me versus you. This is the dangerous shift. What was once a space for connection becomes a silent battleground of subtle digs, withdrawal, or emotional distance. And it's painful, especially when the person is someone you care about, because you're not trying to compete, you're trying to share, you're trying to grow and bring others along with you. But when someone hasn't done the inner work to process their own insecurities, your wins don't inspire them, they trigger them. Here's the hard truth. People who see life as a zero-sum game, where your success means less room for theirs, will struggle to stay genuinely connected when you start to rise. And that's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to notice when the energy has shifted, not to attack, not to retaliate, but to set clear emotional boundaries. Because if you keep trying to maintain connection while someone else is secretly trying to keep score, you'll exhaust yourself. You'll start shrinking, second-guessing, even subconsciously underachieving just to keep them comfortable. Let's be real. We've all been on both sides of this. We've all had moments when someone else's joy brought up our pain. That doesn't make us bad, it makes us human. The difference is whether we recognize that feeling and use it as a mirror or a weapon. Do we get curious about our own jealousy, or do we project it outward, turning our relationships into arenas? In healthy relationships, we choose curiosity over competition. We say, that triggered something in me. Let me look at that, instead of, who does she think she is? In healthy relationships, we hold space for both. I'm happy for you, and this is bringing up some hard stuff for me too. That's vulnerability. That's courage. That's connection. So if you feel like someone in your life is subtly turning your growth into a game, step back, not out of bitterness, but out of love for yourself. Connection is built on trust, and trust can't exist in the same space as quiet sabotage. Protect your peace. Keep showing up fully. You weren't made to play small just to keep someone else from feeling small. Your job is to rise with integrity and let others choose whether they want to rise alongside you. Let me know if you want this formatted into a visual quote card, video monologue, or part of a mini ebook or workshop. There is something profoundly liberating about naming what's really going on. Awareness, real, honest, self-reflective awareness isn't just a soft skill, it's a superpower. It's the moment the fog clears, the moment your gut speaks louder than your need to be liked, the moment you stop gaslighting yourself just to keep the peace. Because here's the thing, people can behave in subtle, confusing, even hurtful ways, and if you're not aware, you start to absorb that behavior as truth. You wonder if you're overreacting, you internalize the tension, you shrink, you try harder, you walk on eggshells. But awareness gives you language. It lets you say, wait, this isn't about me being too much. This might be about someone else feeling not enough. Wait, that wasn't a compliment, that was a disguised criticism. Wait, I don't feel safe here, and I don't have to convince myself I do. That's the power of awareness. It puts you back in the center of your life. It doesn't mean you become cynical or start seeing enemies where there are none. Quite the opposite. Awareness helps you stay grounded. It lets you respond instead of react. It helps you see situations for what they are, not what you wish they were. Awareness is also the starting point for boundaries. You can't set a boundary if you don't know where the breach is happening. You can't protect your peace if you're too foggy to see who's draining it. Jealousy, when left unchecked, creates emotional static. But awareness cuts through the noise. It allows you to acknowledge something here feels off without needing anyone else to validate that for you. That clarity becomes your compass. And maybe even more importantly, awareness gives you compassion. Because once you see clearly what's driving someone's behavior, you stop taking it so personally. You can feel the sting of their actions without letting it rewrite your worth. You can love people and still hold them accountable. You can say, I see your pain, but I don't have to be the one to carry it. This kind of awareness doesn't make life easier, but it does make it cleaner. And cleaner pain is always better than messy confusion. Cleaner pain says, this hurts, but it's real. Confusion says, this hurts, but maybe it's my fault. One frees you. So the next time you feel tension in a relationship, whether it's jealousy, resentment, or quiet disconnection, pause. Take a breath, ask yourself what's really going on. Listen not just to their words, but to how your body feels in their presence. Your awareness will tell you more than their approval ever will. Stay with it, stay awake, stay rooted. Because when you know the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, you don't have to dance around it anymore. You get to decide how you move forward with clarity, courage, and your power intact. Let me know if you'd like the next point in this style. You're not responsible for other people's discomfort with your growth. Let me say something that might feel both freeing and deeply uncomfortable at the same time. You are not responsible for how others react to your growth. Read that again. We live in a world that teaches us, especially those of us who've been conditioned to be peacekeepers, to be likable, to not rock the boat, that our job is to keep everyone else comfortable. Don't be too loud. Don't be too ambitious. Don't take up too much space. Don't shine too bright. Because if you do, someone might feel threatened or left behind or not enough. But here's the truth, that's not your burden to carry. Your growth, your healing, your evolution, your courage to say yes to yourself will inevitably make some people uncomfortable, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're becoming highlights they're staying the same. Your expansion can serve as a mirror, and not everyone is ready to look into that mirror with honesty. And when people feel uncomfortable, they often don't say, wow, I'm being triggered by your growth. What they do say sounds more like, you've changed. Don't forget where you came from. Must be nice to have all that free time for self-care. Why are you being so intense about your goals lately? And what they do might look like withdrawing, mocking, gossiping, or minimizing your efforts, because watching you break cycles or pursue something bold reminds them that they've stayed where it's safe. But their discomfort is about their relationship with themselves, not with you. Let's be real. There's grief in this. Sometimes the people who cheered for the older version of you won't show up for the newer one. And that hurts because we want the people we love to grow with us. We want them to clap when we rise, but not everyone will. And their inability to celebrate you doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just means your paths are no longer aligned, and that's part of life. You do not owe anyone a smaller version of yourself just to stay in their comfort zone. Let me be crystal clear here. Protecting your peace, your energy, and your joy does not make you selfish. It makes you responsible for your own emotional well-being. And that's the kind of responsibility that creates real freedom, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Because when you honor your truth, you invite others to do the same. When you stop shrinking to fit, you model what it looks like to live without apology. When you keep showing up, even when it's awkward, even when it's lonely, you give others permission to rise too. So if your growth is making someone uncomfortable, offer them compassion, not self-abandonment. You can be kind without making yourself small. You can love them without betraying yourself. Growth is not a betrayal, shrinking is. You're not being too much. You're just becoming more you, and the right people, the ones rooted in love, not fear, will adjust their eyes to your light, or they'll find their way to their own. But either way, you keep going. You weren't made to fit into other people's stories. You're here to write your own. There will be moments in your life, maybe you're in one right now, where you feel like your light makes other people squint, where your joy feels too loud, your confidence feels too bold, your honesty feels too intense. And the reflex, the very human reflex, is to shrink, to dial it back, to soften your voice, to camouflage your success in self-deprecating humor, to explain away your confidence just so no one feels threatened. But let me tell you something, with all the love in the world, your light is not too much. It's just unfamiliar to people who haven't yet allowed themselves to shine. And if you spend your life shrinking yourself to stay digestible, you will never know the full strength of your own power. Now here's the nuance, because life is full of nuance. Shrinking and compassion are not the same thing. Compassion says, I see you, I know you're struggling, I honor your pain. But compassion does not require self-abandonment. There's a version of compassion that doesn't ask you to fold yourself into smaller and smaller shapes to keep someone else from facing their discomfort. True compassion says, I will stay soft toward you, but I won't disappear for you. I can offer empathy without editing my joy. I can honor your insecurities without betraying my gifts. The world needs people who are willing to show up fully alive. And fully alive doesn't mean perfect or polished or popular. It means you show up without apology for who you're becoming. It means you take up space in the way only you can, not to overpower anyone, but to embody who you truly are. And yes, your light may stir up things in other people, insecurities, wounds, fears. That's not cruelty, that's contrast. That's clarity, and it's not your job to dull your glow to keep everyone else at ease. Let's say this clearly. You can be humble and still own your strength. You can be kind and still shine unapologetically. You can be compassionate and still say, I will not make myself smaller for you. Because here's what happens when you shrink. You start to fracture. You start to doubt. You start to forget the sound of your own voice. You confuse other people's reactions with your identity. And eventually, the cost of being palatable is authenticity. And authenticity is everything. So instead of asking, am I too much? Ask, am I being honest? Ask, am I rooted in love? Ask, am I honoring what's true for me, even if it makes others uncomfortable? So if the answer is yes, then keep going. You are not too much. You are too rare. And the world doesn't need more people who've learned how to shrink. The world needs more people who've learned how to stay rooted in compassion without erasing themselves. You don't owe anyone a diluted version of yourself. Not to make them comfortable, not to make them stay, not to keep the peace. Yes, jealousy is real. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it can show up in people you love, people you trusted, people you never expected to pull away when you finally started to rise. But your growth is not a betrayal. Your joy is not arrogance. Your voice is not too loud. The real work, the courageous work, is staying awake, aware, compassionate, grounded in your truth, even when the ground beneath your relationship starts to shift, because it will. Growth will cost you something. Sometimes it costs you the approval of people who only love the version of you that didn't challenge their own reflection. But let me remind you, you were not born to play small. You were not meant to carry other people's projections. You were not built to spend your life apologizing for who you're becoming. You were made to evolve, to expand, to rise. And that rising, it doesn't have to be loud or flashy or public. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a boundary. Sometimes it's walking away from someone who keeps trying to clip your wings. Let your growth be rooted in truth, not spite. Let your compassion include yourself. Let your light remind people what's possible, not because you dimmed it, but because you refused to. So if someone is uncomfortable with your growth, let that be their invitation to reflect, not your cue to retreat. Because the world doesn't need more people who've learned to shrink. The world needs you fully, freely, fiercely, exactly as you are. Keep rising. I want to talk about the quiet power of quitting. Not the kind that's dramatic or headline worthy, but the kind that feels like choosing peace over pretending. The kind that slowly, steadily makes room for a life that feels more like yours. In my 50s, I didn't have a full-blown midlife crisis, but I did start noticing that some of the things I was holding on to weren't holding me back, they were dragging me under. We live in a world that glorifies perseverance, hustle, and pushing through no matter the cost. From a young age, we're taught to finish what we start, to never give up, to keep proving our worth by how much we can endure. But here's the truth no one talks about. Not everything is meant to be held on to, and not everything is worth finishing. Quitting, when done with intention and self-respect, is not a sign of weakness. It's a deeply courageous act of self-awareness. It takes strength to say this no longer serves me. It takes clarity to walk away from a role, a relationship, a belief, or even a version of yourself that no longer aligns with who you're becoming. In my 50s, I began to understand that continuing something just because I started it was not loyalty, it was fear. Fear of judgment, fear of change, fear of letting people down. But the deeper fear, the one I was avoiding, was the fear of disappointing myself by staying stuck in places I had outgrown. There is no prize for enduring what hurts your spirit. No trophy for carrying things that dim your light. When you quit with courage, you're not giving up on life, you're giving up on living small. And the freedom that comes after, the exhale, the peace, the space to finally be yourself, that's where happiness begins to bloom. Because life isn't just about holding on, it's about learning when to let go. For years, I believed that being strong meant keeping it all together. I believed that holding back my tears, hiding my disappointment, and burying my pain was a form of maturity, something to be proud of. I'd say I'm fine when I wasn't. I'd smile through sadness. I'd minimize what hurt and package it in politeness. But something started to break in my 50s. Not in a dramatic, falling apart kind of way, but in small, quiet moments. Moments where I realized I was becoming emotionally invisible in my own life. I was present, yes, but not authentic. I was showing up, but not as my full self. What I've learned is this: emotional honesty isn't weakness, it's the doorway to real connection. When we pretend to be okay, we don't just disconnect from others, we abandon ourselves. We trade intimacy for safety, truth for performance. And here's what happens when you finally stop doing that. People lean in, and the ones who truly care, who want to love you as you are, not as you pretend to be, they show up. Not everyone will, and that's okay. But the ones who stay, they see you fully, deeply. And in that sacred seeing, you finally feel known. Telling the truth about how you feel doesn't make you a burden, it makes you brave. It gives others permission to be honest too. It creates spaces where masks fall off and real healing begins. In my 60s, I no longer waste energy managing appearances. If I'm grieving, I say it. If I'm joyful, I don't downplay it. If I need support, I reach out without shame. Let me tell you, the connections I've built from that place, raw, unfiltered, real, have brought more peace and purpose than decades of polished perfection ever could. Because we don't bond over how well we pretend. We bond over the truth that says, me too, I felt that too. For most of my life, I believed that being kind meant being available, that love meant sacrifice, that saying yes kept me connected, and saying no might make me lose people. So I became what many of us are taught to become, accommodating, agreeable, and endlessly forgiving. I allowed conversations that drained me. I tolerated disrespect under the banner of keeping the peace. I silenced my discomfort to protect someone else's ego. And every time I did that, a small piece of my self-respect eroded quietly. But in my 50s, I began to question something fundamental. Why did I believe that everyone else's comfort mattered more than my own clarity? Why did I think kindness meant never disappointing anyone, even at the cost of betraying myself? That's when I learned boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are bridges that show people how to love you properly. They are not punishments, they are instructions. They are a sacred form of self-trust, where you decide what your energy is worth and who's earned the right to access it. It took time. At first, saying no felt like abandonment. I felt guilty for protecting my peace. I worried I was being selfish. But I came to understand that self-respect and self-neglect cannot coexist. If I wanted to live with integrity, I had to start treating myself like someone who mattered. So now in my 60s, my boundaries are clear, loving, and firm. I no longer explain myself in paragraphs. I no longer stay in conversations where I'm being diminished. I no longer feel obligated to fix everyone's discomfort when I set a limit. Because here's the truth. The people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will call them selfish. But the people who love you well will honor them without needing to be convinced. When you set boundaries, you're not pushing others away, you're inviting in a deeper, more honest kind of love. And most importantly, you're choosing to belong to yourself first, which is the foundation of every healthy relationship you'll ever build. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that aging is a slow unraveling, a quiet disappearance from relevance, from beauty, from possibility. We're told to fight it, hide it, cover it up. We're sold serums, surgeries, and slogans that whisper, you are running out of time. But what if aging isn't about loss? It's about unfolding. Not fading, but becoming more honest, more grounded, more whole. In my 50s, I started to feel the first tremors of grief around aging. My body was changing, my energy shifted. Things that used to come easy took more effort. and the world seemed to value me a little less. And for a while, I bought into the fear that my worth was tied to my youth, that my voice had an expiration date, that my best chapters were behind me. But something incredible happened as I leaned into the discomfort instead of fighting it. I discovered that aging strips away everything that isn't real. The performances, the people-pleasing, the pressure to be perfect, it peels you down to your truest self. And what's underneath is something stronger, softer, and more sacred. Now, in my 60 yes, I don't chase youth. I honor it for what it taught me. But I no longer try to go back because what I've gained is so much more valuable than what I've lost. I've gained wisdom that can't be read in books. I've gained peace from knowing I don't need to be everything to everyone. I have gained the courage to speak truth even if my voice shakes. Aging has given me permission to slow down, not because I've stopped caring, but because I've finally started choosing what I care about. And the beauty is not in wrinkle-free skin or perfect posture. It's in the sparkle of a woman who knows who she is. It's in laugh lines earned from decades of resilience. It's in the posture of someone who no longer needs validation to feel valuable. Aging is not something to survive, it's something to celebrate because you're not running out of time, you're stepping more fully into your truth. And that is not decline, that is ascension. For most of my life, I treated joy like a reward, something I had to earn, something that came after the to-do list was done, the kids were okay, the house was clean, my body looked right, my emotions were regulated, my past was healed, and my future was under control. In other words, never. I believed joy belonged to those who had their lives fully together. I thought I had to deserve it. And so I spent years waiting, postponing laughter until I was more disciplined, holding off on rest until I was more productive, dimming my happiness so I wouldn't look too full of myself. But as I moved through my 50s, I began to see how quietly joy was slipping through my fingers. Not because I lacked it, but because I was too distracted to notice it. I was always striving, always measuring, always waiting for a perfect moment that never came. And then I learned something that changed everything. Joy isn't earned, it's noticed. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about choosing to feel delight even when life is messy, uncertain, or incomplete. Joy is a hot cup of coffee in a quiet morning. It's the sound of your own laughter catching you off guard. It's dancing in your kitchen to music only you can hear. It's the courage to love what you love, even if no one else understands it. Joy doesn't ask you to fix your past or control your future. It invites you into this moment, just as it is, imperfect, unpolished, alive. In my 60s, I've stopped waiting for someday. I take long walks and call them sacred. I let myself cry during movies. I smile at strangers and mean it. I celebrate without needing a reason. Because the truth is, joy is not a finish line you arrive at. It's a choice you make with your whole heart, even when your life is still unfolding. You don't need to be healed to feel joy. You don't need to be successful to feel joy. You don't need permission. You just need to be here, fully, softly, willingly. And that kind of joy, the kind that rises from ordinary presence, is not just beautiful, it's transformative. There's one thing I wish I had learned earlier in life, it's this. You don't need everyone to understand you. You need to trust yourself. But for decades, I didn't. I second-guessed my gut. I over-explained my choices. I twisted myself into versions that were easier to accept, more agreeable, more accommodating, more normal. Every time I made a decision, I'd ask, what will they think? Every time I had a boundary, I'd soften it just enough not to ruffle feathers. And every time I had a deep knowing, I'd wait for someone else to confirm it, someone with more confidence, more authority, more permission. But here's what I've come to understand. Outsourcing your wisdom is a slow kind of self-abandonment. You are the only one who has lived every second of your life. The only one who knows what makes your body tighten and what makes your spirit exhale. The only one who wakes up in your skin every day and carries your joy, your grief, your resilience. And yet we've been conditioned, especially as women, to trust others before ourselves, to defer to experts, to follow the rules, to stay small, stay polite, stay quiet. But the cost of that conditioning is steep. It steals our clarity. Well, it mutes our voice. It keeps us living half-lives, waiting for someone to say, yes, you're allowed. In my 50s, I began to rebel against that, not with shouting, but with soft, steady self-trust, with saying, I don't need you to understand. I just need to honor what's true for me, with choosing what felt right in my bones, even if it didn't make sense to anyone else. And in my 60s, I live by this truth. No one else is coming to rescue you from your own doubt. The most powerful thing you can do is stand beside yourself, fully, fiercely, unwaveringly. Self-trust isn't loud. It's the quiet certainty. It's knowing that your no is enough, that your yes is sacred, that your intuition is not a fluke. It's wisdom, it's history, it's a compass. And here's the magic. When you trust yourself, you stop begging for validation. You stop shrinking to be digestible. You stop explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You begin to walk differently. It's not arrogantly, but with the grounded grace of someone who belongs to herself. That is the most radical kind of freedom there is. When we think of happiness in later life, we often imagine it coming from adding more achievements, more routines, more control. But the deeper I've gone into my 60s, the more I've learned that real happiness doesn't come from adding. It comes from releasing what no longer fits, releasing who you had to be to survive, releasing the need to be understood by everyone, releasing the shame, the guilt, the pressure to prove. The 10 things I quit weren't grand gestures. They didn't make headlines or shake the world, but they changed my life. Because each time I quit something that wasn't aligned with my truth, I made room for something more powerful. Peace, self-respect, and joy that doesn't ask for permission. And let's be honest, quitting is not always easy. It takes courage to walk away from roles we've outgrown, stories we've internalized, or expectations we never agreed to in the first place. But every single time I chose myself, quietly, intentionally, unapologetically, my life became more honest, more meaningful, more mine. So if you're somewhere in your 50s feeling the quiet pull to let go of things that don't sit right anymore, listen to it. But because you're waking up. And in that awakening, in that beautiful act of quitting what dims your light, you'll find something sacred, the kind of happiness that isn't loud or flashy, but soft, steady, and deeply free. You don't need to become someone else to be happy in your 60s. You just need to stop being what you're not. And that kind of joy is waiting for you on the other side of letting go. There comes a time in life when protecting our peace isn't a luxury, it's survival. And part of that protection means being brutally honest about the people we allow into our inner circle. Not everyone who smiles at us wishes us well. Not everyone who claims to love us knows how to love us in healthy ways. Now let's be clear, life is hard. Every one of us will face heartbreak, betrayal, loss, and unfairness. There are seasons where we feel broken and knocked down, and in those moments, it's normal to lean on others, to ask for help, to grieve. That's part of being human.
But the chronic victim is different. This isn't about a season, it's about an identity. They wear suffering like a permanent badge, and every story they tell begins and ends with how the world has done them wrong. There is always a villain, but never any accountability. Spending time with a chronic victim feels like walking into quicksand. The longer you stand there, the deeper you sink. They never want solutions. They want sympathy endlessly without change. And if you try to offer perspective or encourage growth, they see it as an attack. Here's the danger. If you're not careful, you'll start absorbing their worldview. You'll begin to believe life is always happening to you instead of remembering that life also happens through you and for you. Their lens of powerlessness can slowly become yours, and before you know it, you're shrinking your own resilience just to keep their company. The tragedy is that many of these people don't even realize they're trapped. They're so used to blaming others that responsibility feels like a foreign language. But if you stay too close, they will pull you into their story and cast you in a role you never asked for, either as their rescuer or eventually their villain. Here's the truth we need to hold on to. We are not responsible for saving people who refuse to stand. D up. We can offer compassion, yes, but compassion without boundaries will destroy us. Avoiding the chronic victim doesn't mean you lack empathy. It means you understand the difference between supporting someone in pain and carrying someone who refuses to walk. One will grow your heart, the other will break your spirit. When you step back from people who live in permanent victimhood, you reclaim your own power. You remind yourself that while life may not always be fair, you still have choices, you still have strength, you still have the ability to rise. And isn't that the point? To surround yourself with people who remind you of your strength, not those who convince you you're powerless. Now let's pause here because feedback and criticism are not the same thing. Feedback is a gift. It may be uncomfortable, but it comes from love, from a desire to see us grow and succeed. A true friend, a true partner will tell us the truth because they believe in us. But the constant critic, that's different. Their words don't come from care. They come from a need to tear down. Their feedback isn't about helping you. It's about making themselves feel powerful by making you feel small. They notice every flaw, every misstep, every imperfection, and they never miss a chance to point it out. If you accomplish something, they'll tell you why it wasn't enough. If you take a risk, they'll highlight every way you could fail. If you shine, they'll remind you of the shadows. Spending time with a constant critic is exhausting because their voice doesn't just stay outside of you, it sneaks in. Over time, their harsh words can become the echo in your own head. You start doubting yourself, second-guessing decisions, apologizing for things that don't need an apology. You start living small just to avoid giving them more ammunition. Here's the truth. Nobody grows in a garden of cry. Ticism. Growth needs sunlight, encouragement, and space to breathe. The constant critic withholds all of that. They keep you trapped in self-doubt because it gives them a sense of control. And often, manipulation is one of the most dangerous toxins in human relationships because it's not always obvious. Unlike open criticism or clear negativity, manipulation often hides behind charm, flattery, or even false kindness. It doesn't come at you head on. It slips in through the side door. Manipulators are masters of twisting reality. They make you question yourself, your decisions, and sometimes even your sanity. One day they'll shower you with praise, and the next they'll withhold affection or approval until you do exactly what they want. Their love, their attention, their validation, it's all conditional, a bargaining chip in their game. And here's the hard truth. They don't want partnership. They want control. Every conversation, every conflict, every moment somehow ends with you bending, apologizing, or giving in. You walk away confused, replaying their words in your head, wondering if maybe you were the problem all along. That's the trap. Manipulators thrive in your self-doubt. They know how to make you feel guilty for having needs, selfish for setting boundaries, or ungrateful for wanting more. They rewrite the story until you start believing their version instead of your own truth. And slowly, almost without realizing it, you shrink. You stop speaking up. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop believing that your feelings matter. That is the quiet damage of manipulation. It doesn't just control your choices, it erodes your sense of self. But here's what we must remember. Clarity is power. The moment you name manipulation for what it is, you take back ground. The moment you recognize that love should not feel like a chess match, you begin to break free. Healthy relationships are built on honesty and respect, not on guilt trips, silent treatments, or emotional blackmail. The people who truly love you don't need to twist your arm or your heart to get you to stay. They invite you, they support you, and they accept you as you are. So when you encounter a manipulator, the best thing you can do is step back. Don't play the game. Don't get tangled in the web of their half-truths and emotional traps. Your responsibility is not to untangle their strings, it's to cut yourself free. And here's something powerful. Once you walk away from manipulation, you'll be stunned at how heavy the weight was. You'll realize just how much energy you spent trying to decode, to appease, to explain. And when that weight lifts, you'll never want to carry it again. Because peace is never found in the hands of a manipulator. It's found in reclaiming your voice, your choices, and your right to relationships that don't come with strings attached. Now, gossip may seem harmless at first. It can feel like a casual exchange, just sharing what we've heard. But make no mistake, gossip is poison dressed up as conversation. It destroys trust, corrodes relationships, and weakens communities from the inside out. Here's the thing about a gossip carrier. They thrive on being the middleman of information. They love knowing something about someone else that you don't. It makes them feel important, powerful, even indispensable. But what they're really doing is sowing seeds of division, seeds that grow into suspicion, insecurity, and broken connections. Think about it. If someone comes to you with stories about everyone else, what do you think happens when you're not in the room? Exactly. You become the next story on their lips. Gossip doesn't stay in one direction. It circulates, and eventually it circles back to you. The damage goes deeper than just words. Gossip is betrayal disguised as bonding. It tricks us into thinking we're closer to the person sharing secrets, when in reality, it's creating distance between us and the people being talked about. It is an illusion of intimacy built on the destruction of trust. And let's be honest, listening to gossip can be tempting. It's human nature to want to know the story, to feel included, to hear the drama. Jealousy is a human emotion. We all feel it at some point. Seeing someone succeed or receive something we long for can sting. That's normal. But most people process that feeling, reflect on it, and maybe even use it as motivation to grow. The jealous underminer, however, doesn't process jealousy. They live in it. They can't celebrate your wins. They can't cheer for you without secretly hoping you trip on the way up. Their joy is scarce, and your success feels like a threat to them. Here's how they operate. When something good happens for you, instead of celebrating, they minimize. You get a promotion. They'll say, "You're lucky your boss likes you." You buy a new home. They'll sigh, "The market's bad. You probably overpaid." You accomplish something brave. They'll remind you of every reason it wasn't that impressive. These subtle digs add up. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself dimming your own light just to avoid making them uncomfortable. You'll hesitate to share your happiness because instead of receiving applause, you get silence, or worse, backhanded comments. The danger of a jealous underminer is that they don't just fail to celebrate you, they actively chip away at your confidence. They plant seeds of doubt so you never feel too good about your progress. And deep down, their goal is to keep you small because your growth exposes their own stagnation. But here's the truth. People who truly love you want to see you shine. Real friends clap when you win because they know your light doesn't dim theirs. It just brightens the room for everyone. When you're surrounded by jealous underminers, you start living half-heartedly. You begin to believe that maybe you should play it safe. Maybe you should keep quiet about your dreams. Maybe you should shrink to fit inside their comfort zone. But that is not why you are here. You are here to rise, to expand, to take up space with your gifts. Let me be clear, someone else's jealousy is not your burden to carry. You don't need to dim your light to make them feel better. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to live fully, unapologetically, and to surround yourself with people who believe that when you rise, they rise too. And when you start letting go of the jealous underminers in your life, something amazing happens. You make room for cheerleaders, for people who will celebrate you without hesitation, who will stand with you not just in the struggle, but in the victory. That's the kind of energy you need in your circle. Boundaries are not walls. They are not about shutting people out. Boundaries are about protecting the parts of us that are sacred, our time, our energy, our emotional well-being. They are the invisible lines that define what is acceptable and what is not. But boundary breakers don't see those lines, or worse, they see them and refuse to respect them. When you say no, they hear it as an invitation to push harder. When you say, I need space, they take it as a challenge to come closer. When you set limits, they treat them like obstacles to climb, not truths to honor. Spending time with a boundary breaker feels like constantly defending your home with no doors. Every time you close one, they find a window to crawl through. And it's exhausting. It leaves you feeling violated, unheard, and invisible. Here's the reality. When someone ignores your boundaries, what they're really saying is, my needs matter more than yours. And over time, that message chips away at your sense of self. You begin to doubt your right to say no. You start giving in just to avoid conflict. You sacrifice your own peace just to keep them satisfied. But here's the hard truth. People who truly love and respect you will not demand access to every part of you. They will honor your limits. They will hear your no and still love you. They will understand that boundaries are not rejection. They are self-respect. Boundary breakers often disguise themselves as calm. You know them. You've met them. The people who drain the life out of you without ever lifting a finger. You walk into a room with them and leave feeling 10 pounds heavier. You pick up the phone when they call, and within minutes it feels like your spirit has been wrung out like a towel. Here's the truth about energy vampires. They don't always look toxic on the surface. Sometimes they show up as a friend in need, someone who just needs to vent, or someone who always seems to be going through a crisis. But the difference between someone genuinely struggling and an energy vampire is this. Struggling people want help to grow, while energy vampires just want to keep taking without ever changing. They feed on your compassion. They feed on your patience. They feed on the space you create for them, and yet they rarely give anything back. No matter how much you listen, support, or carry them, it's never enough. And the danger is subtle. At first, you think you're being kind. You tell yourself, I'm just being a good friend, a good partner, a good family member. But over time, you realize that being around them costs you your peace. Your emotional energy isn't infinite, and yet they pull and pull until you are left empty. Here's the thing. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot light someone else's path if your flame is burning out. And when you allow energy vampires too much access to your life, your own light begins to flicker. You start waking up tired, not because of what you're doing, but because of who you're carrying. Energy vampires often thrive on drama. They are magnets for chaos, and somehow they're always the center of the storm. And when you try to help calm the chaos, you realize the storm never ends. It just moves in circles. That's because their identity is tied to the crisis. Without it, they don't know who they are. And so your role becomes clear. You're the fixer, the rescuer, the endless supply of strength they draw from. But let me be honest, your life is not meant to be someone else's battery pack. You are not responsible for fueling people who refuse to recharge themselves. Protecting yourself from energy vampires doesn't mean you don't care. It means you understand the balance of give and take. Healthy relationships flow both ways. They give as much as they receive. They lift as much as they lean. So if you find yourself constantly depleted after spending time with someone, pay attention. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's a transaction where only one person is paying the cost. When you step back from energy vampires, you'll notice something powerful. You begin to breathe again. You reclaim the energy to invest in people who inspire you, who fuel your joy, who add to your life instead of draining it. Because your energy is sacred, protect it, guard it, and never ever hand it over to someone who treats it as an endless resource they're entitled to. The eighth type of person you should avoid at all costs is the unreliable promise breaker. Trust is the foundation of every healthy relationship. Whether it's with a partner, a friend, a colleague, or family, trust is the invisible glue that holds everything together. And at the heart of trust is something very simple: doing what you say you will do. The unreliable promise breaker doesn't live by that principle. Their words are loud, but their actions are silent. They make promises easily. I'll be there, I'll call you back, you can count on me. But over and over again, they fail to follow through. And let me tell you, broken promises don't just disappoint, they hurt. They chip away at your sense of safety in the relationship. They make you question, can I really rely on this person when it matters most? At first you might excuse it, they're busy. They didn't mean it. It's not that big of a deal. But over time, a pattern emerges, and that pattern becomes the story of your connection. One-sided effort, constant because love, real love, is not proven in grand declarations. It's proven in the small, steady commitments honored again and again. The unreliable promise breaker often hides behind charm. They know how to apologize, how to promise bigger next time, how to convince you to give them another chance. But apologies without change are just manipulation dressed up as regret. Words don't mean much if they're never backed by action. And the truth is, every broken promise is not just about the missed call or the forgotten plan, it's about respect. When someone breaks their word repeatedly, what they're really saying is, my comfort is more important than your trust. That's not a relationship. That's neglect wrapped in excuses. When you finally start stepping back from the unreliable promise breaker, you'll feel the difference. You'll realize how much energy you wasted waiting, hoping, and forgiving. And you'll also discover the relief that comes from being around people who actually show up when they say they will. Because in the end, relationships aren't built on what people promise. They're built on what people deliver. Choose people whose actions speak louder than their words. Choose people who don't just talk about loyalty, but live it. Your trust is precious. Don't hand it out to those who treat it as disposable. We've walked through 10 types of people who can quietly or loudly steal our peace. The chronic victim, the constant critic, the manipulator, the gossip carrier, the jealous underminer, the boundary breaker, the energy vampire, the unreliable promise breaker, the chronic negative, and finally those who shrink us so they can feel bigger. And maybe as you listened, some faces came to mind. Maybe you realized you've been carrying people who drain you, diminish you, or disrespect you. And if so, let me remind you of something vital. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It is survival. It is sacred. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to your heart, your time, or your energy, especially when their presence poisons your well-being. Love, respect, and trust are not things we beg for or bargain for. They are things that flow naturally in relationships built on truth and care. Here's the reality. When you release the people who break you down, you make space for the people who will build you up. When you walk away from gossip, manipulation, and criticism, you create room for encouragement, honesty, and joy. When you stop pouring into those who only take, you finally have enough to pour into the people and passions that matter most. So yes, avoiding these types of people is hard. It may mean letting go of long relationships, setting boundaries with family, or walking away from comfort zones. But what you gain is priceless. You gain clarity, freedom, and the chance to live your life surrounded by people who reflect your worth instead of denying it. At the end of the day, you are responsible for guarding the light inside you. Don't let it be dimmed by those who cannot handle its brightness. Don't trade your peace for someone else's comfort. And don't settle for relationships that shrink you when you were born to rise. Your life is too valuable, your time is too short, your heart is too rare. Surround yourself with people who protect it, honor it, and celebrate it. And have the courage to let go of everyone who doesn't.